In a small Austin workshop, a teenage girl's wheelchair sits broken and lifeless. 14-year-old Mia has lost hope, and her father is desperate. But one mechanic, Ethan, isn't just here to fix the chair. He's here to change her life forever. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. Ethan's workshop sat on the outskirts of Austin, tucked between an old diner and a dusty stretch of road where few people bothered to stop. The morning sun filtered through the half-broken blinds, casting thin stripes of gold across the concrete floor. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag, expecting another routine repair job, until the door creaked open and a teenage girl rolled in on a badly damaged wheelchair. Mia, 14, stayed quiet, her eyes fixed on the floor while her father pushed her gently, his worry etched into every line on his tired face. Ethan noticed immediately that this wasn't just a simple repair. One wheel dragged, the motor whined like it was begging for mercy, and a crack ran down the frame as if the chair had given up slowly over time. Mia's fingers curled tightly around the armrests, not out of fear, but out of something deeper, resignation. She barely looked up, but Ethan saw the heaviness in her expression and felt something inside him shift. Her father spoke first, voice tight, explaining how the wheelchair had been failing for months, but they couldn't afford a new one. Insurance claims kept getting denied, and every repair shop quoted them prices they could never manage. Ethan listened quietly, nodding, but his eyes remained on Mia. She seemed distant, like someone who had stopped expecting good things to happen. He knew that look. He had worn it himself once. "Let me take a look," he finally said, kneeling beside her. When Ethan touched the wheelchair, he realized the problem wasn't neglect, it was life. Life had worn it down the same way it had worn down the girl sitting in it. Some scratches looked like they came from outdoor races, others from falls she didn't talk about. He tightened bolts, tested wiring, and studied every flaw, but Mia kept her gaze fixed somewhere across the room, refusing to let him read her emotions. Ethan didn't push her. He simply worked, letting his hands speak where words couldn't. As the minutes passed, Ethan started asking gentle questions, simple ones about her favorite colors, her hobbies, or things she missed doing. Most of the time she shrugged or gave short answers, but he didn't mind. He wasn't trying to force a conversation. He was trying to touch the part of her that still cared, still hoped, still remembered the world before. Disappointment took over. Her father stood nearby, shifting from foot to foot, wanting to help but not knowing how. Ethan understood that helplessness too well. When Ethan rolled the wheelchair to his workstation, Mia finally looked up just for a second. He caught the glimpse, fear mixed with longing. She wanted to move again, wanted to feel strong, wanted to feel like a normal teenage girl who wasn't defined by limitations. Ethan swallowed hard. The memory of his own sister flashed in his mind, the way he had once tried repairing her wheelchair too late. Loss had carved a permanent scar in his heart, and that scar now guided his hands with a new kind of purpose. He cleaned the rusted joints, replaced damaged wires, and tested the motor, realizing this machine had more problems than he initially thought. But the more he worked, the more determined he became. He wasn't fixing a chair. He was fixing a bridge back to a life Mia thought she had lost. He wanted her to feel the wind again, the thrill of moving fast, the freedom that only mobility could bring. Each part he handled became a promise, a quiet vow that she wouldn't leave his workshop feeling defeated. Mia watched silently from a stool in the corner, pretending not to care, but Ethan noticed the way her eyes followed his movements. She may not have spoken much, but her silence was not emptiness. It was trust forming slowly, cautiously. Ethan cracked small jokes to ease her father's nerves, and once he thought he saw Mia hide a tiny smile. It was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. That one small shift was enough to push Ethan harder. Hours slipped by until the sun was high in the sky. Sweat dripped from Ethan's forehead as he polished the frame, tightening every last piece with precision. The workshop smelled like metal, oil, and effort, real effort. But for Ethan it felt like healing. Every upgrade he installed came from his own pocket, though he didn't mention it. The family had enough burdens. Some kindness didn't need attention or price tags. Some kindness was meant to stay quiet, like a whispered prayer. When he finally paused, Ethan looked at Mia again. She sat straighter now, curiosity replacing the earlier dullness in her eyes. She wasn't smiling, not fully, but something inside her had shifted. Maybe it was hope, creeping back slowly. Maybe it was belief. Ethan didn't say anything dramatic. He simply nodded to her father and said, "I'll get this working better than new." He meant it. This wasn't just a repair job. It was a chance to give a young girl the one thing life kept taking from her: freedom. Ethan returned to the workshop the next morning, tools laid out neatly on the workbench. The sunlight poured through the dusty windows, and the smell of metal and oil felt comforting. Mia sat quietly in the corner, legs tucked under her, hands resting on her lap. Her father hovered nearby, unsure how much to intervene. Ethan gave a small smile and waved, trying to ease the tension. The wheelchair sat in front of him, half repaired but full of potential. He knew this wasn't just about bolts and motors. It was about restoring confidence, restoring trust, and giving Mia something she hadn't felt in months. He began by carefully dismantling the worn wheels, examining each piece for hidden damage. The tires were frayed, the spokes bent, and the bearings rusted. Ethan replaced each part with upgraded components, imagining how smoothly they would glide once reassembled. He worked methodically, every motion deliberate. Mia's eyes followed his hands, her curiosity growing despite herself. She shifted in her seat, leaning closer to see. Ethan noticed and offered a small, reassuring smile. "Want to help?" he asked gently. Mia hesitated, then nodded. Her father's eyes widened slightly, a mix of relief and hope washing over him. As Ethan and Mia worked together, he began explaining what each part did, encouraging her to touch and feel the mechanisms. "This motor controls your speed, see?" he said, gently guiding her hand. Mia's fingers trembled slightly, but she followed along, listening carefully. Her father watched quietly, proud, yet nervous. For the first time in months, Mia seemed engaged, involved, and even a little excited. Ethan realized that repairing the wheelchair wasn't enough. He had to repair her connection to life, to curiosity, to movement. Each turn of a screwdriver, each tightened bolt became a step towards something bigger than just mobility. By midday, the chair's frame was solid, the wheels spinning smoothly and the motor humming quietly. Ethan took a deep breath, knowing the most delicate part remained, teaching Mia to trust her body again. "Let's test it slowly," he said, kneeling beside her. She gripped the joystick tightly, her knuckles white. Her first movements were tentative, jerky, almost timid. But Ethan encouraged her patiently, guiding the chair with his hands when needed. Mia's face shifted from fear to concentration, and finally to a small, unsteady smile. Her father leaned forward, whispering, "You can do it, Mia," as though his words alone could bridge months of fear and limitation. Hours passed in the workshop as Mia practiced moving in her newly repaired wheelchair. She learned to navigate corners, avoid obstacles, and adjust speed with precision. Ethan stayed close, offering tips and gentle encouragement, while her father remained nearby, his eyes shining with pride. Mia laughed softly for the first time in weeks when she accidentally spun in a small circle, almost tipping over. Ethan caught her in time, both relieved and amused. The sound of her laughter echoed across the workshop, blending with the hum of machinery. For Ethan, it was more than the joy of a repair. It was a glimpse of a restored spirit. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, Ethan added the final touches. Custom grips on the joystick, padded cushions for comfort, and small safety features to make navigation easier. Mia examined every detail, her fingers tracing the edges, eyes wide with wonder. She tried out minor adjustments herself, growing more confident with each movement. Her father stepped closer, helping where necessary but mostly letting her shine. Ethan watched silently, feeling a surge of satisfaction he hadn't expected. Fixing a wheelchair was one thing, but seeing a girl reclaim her independence, her courage and her joy was a kind of reward money could never buy. Ethan noticed the shift in Mia's posture as the day progressed. She began sitting taller, moving with more confidence, even occasionally initiating small maneuvers without guidance. The fear that had clung to her months ago was slowly lifting, replaced by curiosity and determination. Ethan knew this transformation wasn't just mechanical, it was emotional, psychological. Every smooth turn of the wheel, every forward push, was teaching her that limitations weren't permanent. Her father's eyes glistened as he witnessed his daughter's courage returning. Ethan smiled quietly, grateful for the opportunity to make a difference that extended far beyond the walls of his workshop. By evening, Mia's movements had become fluid, precise, and confident. She zipped across the workshop with a giddy energy, occasionally spinning or stopping abruptly just to test her control. Her father laughed, tears threatening to spill, as he watched her rediscover freedom. Ethan stepped back, wiping his hands on a rag, letting the moment sink in. He realized that repairing the wheelchair had been the easy part. The harder, more rewarding task was helping. Mia rediscovered trust in herself, hope in her abilities, and belief that she could still experience life fully, despite the months of limitations she had endured. Finally, Mia stopped near the workbench, her face radiant with excitement. She looked at Ethan, eyes shining. "Thank you. I didn't think I could ever feel this way." "Again," she whispered. Ethan felt a lump in his throat, but nodded, smiling. Her father hugged her tightly, murmuring his own words of gratitude. Ethan glanced at the chair, now fully functional and customized for Mia, and felt a quiet satisfaction. In one long day, he had not only repaired a wheelchair, but had restored a young girl's courage, independence, and joy, giving her the first taste of freedom she had experienced in months. Mia's laughter filled the workshop as she maneuvered her wheelchair with newfound ease. Every turn was precise, every push confident, and the small grins she threw at her father said more than words ever could. Ethan watched silently, leaning against the workbench, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. He had repaired the machine, yes, but witnessing the spark returning to this girl's eyes was something far beyond his expectations. Her father's hands shook slightly as he clapped, overwhelmed by emotion. The quiet, tense girl from weeks ago was gone, replaced by a version of herself that exuded curiosity and courage. Ethan guided Mia toward a narrow path he had set up with cones and small obstacles, creating a mini-course for her to practice control. At first, she hesitated, glancing at her father and then at Ethan for reassurance. "You've got this," Ethan encouraged gently, standing to the side. Mia gripped the joystick and navigated, carefully, her movements tentative but determined. Each successful turn brought a wider smile, and her laughter rang brighter with every attempt. Her father's eyes glistened as he realized she was regaining more than mobility. She was regaining confidence, independence, and trust in her own abilities. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting warm light across the workshop floor. Mia began experimenting with speed, pushing the joystick forward and laughing as she glided faster than she had in months. Ethan watched closely, ready to intervene if needed, but she handled the chair flawlessly. Her father let out a quiet, relieved sigh. "I never thought I'd see this," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Ethan smiled, Remembering how defeated Mia had seemed just a day earlier, it was a profound moment, one of triumph over fear, frustration, and limitations that had seemed permanent. As Mia continued practicing, she began to weave in small tricks she remembered from before, spinning the chair gently, pivoting around obstacles, and testing her balance. Her confidence grew with each movement, and the joy in her eyes became impossible to ignore. Ethan stepped back, letting her explore without guidance, only ready to catch her if necessary. Her father stayed close, but with an expression that said he trusted her to succeed. Mia's small, hesitant steps had transformed into confident pushes, and it was clear to everyone present that something deeper than mobility had been restored. Her spirit, her excitement for life, and her willingness to try again. Ethan noticed how her posture had changed as she navigated the workshop. She sat taller, leaned forward with focus, and smiled openly. Her hands moved with precision, and her feet hovered slightly, testing the sensitivity of the brakes. "I can't believe this," her father murmured, watching her spin around a corner. "You're amazing, Mia." Mia looked up at Ethan, eyes sparkling. "I feel different," she said softly. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. This was more than a repaired wheelchair. It was a life renewed. The fear and resignation she had carried were gone, replaced by determination, freedom, and joy. The sun began to dip lower, painting the walls with golden hues as Mia explored the workshop. She laughed when she accidentally spun into a stack of tires, brushing herself off and trying again. Her father cheered her on, hugging her between attempts, and Ethan felt the satisfaction of knowing his efforts had gone far beyond the mechanical. Each movement, each test, each smile was proof that he had helped restore something priceless: hope. Mia's world, once confined and quiet, was opening up again, and Ethan realized the impact went far beyond what he could see. He had repaired her spirit as much as the wheelchair. Ethan decided it was time to challenge her further, setting up a slightly more complex obstacle course. Mia's eyes widened, but she nodded eagerly, gripping the joystick with determination. Her father stepped back, watching silently as she navigated the course with grace and skill. Every twist, turn, and stop was executed perfectly. Ethan felt a swell of pride. Months of fear and frustration were melting away, replaced by excitement and independence. Mia's laughter was constant now, her voice carrying through the workshop. She glanced at Ethan and whispered, "I didn't think I could do this again," her eyes shining with genuine amazement. By evening, the workshop had become a small arena of triumph. Mia zipped past Ethan and her father, spinning around corners and stopping precisely where she wanted. The joy radiating from her was palpable, her laughter echoing against the walls. Her father clapped and cheered, tears streaming down his face while Ethan wiped his own eyes discreetly. Mia came to a stop near Ethan, panting slightly but smiling broadly. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "You didn't just fix my chair, you fixed me." Ethan's heart tightened, and he nodded, feeling the full weight of what he had accomplished. Finally, as the sun disappeared behind the trees, Mia parked the wheelchair neatly and sat quietly, a peaceful expression on her face. Her father knelt beside her, holding her hands and whispering words of love and pride. Ethan cleaned his tools, feeling a sense of closure. What had started as a repair job had become something infinitely larger, the restoration of a life, a spark, and a belief in possibility. Mia's eyes shone with hope, her laughter still lingering in the air, and Ethan knew that the impact of today would ripple far beyond this small workshop, changing all their lives forever.